Welcome to the Muslim Street. We're at the Muslim Street. You can reach us at www.themuslimstreet.com. And also, if you have a little feedback, I'm going to make a quick correction here. All right. Yeah, you can reach us at the Muslim Street at www.themuslimstreet.com. Also across all social media, Facebook. We've been banned from X. That's a badge of honor. Bump, 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 bump. Anytime the enemy don't want you around, then you know you're doing the right thing. And we can continue to be not wanted around by the Western establishment. We can also find us again on Facebook, Instagram, and of course, we produced out of Ghana by the great Lance Scurv. Lance is with us from Accra, where it seems to be a little warm there tonight. You guys are about, 5 hours ahead of us here on the East Coast, Lance?
Yes, 5 hours ahead of the East Coast, up in the mountains, feeling the heat and loving it.
Now, I was in Ghana actually my first trip to Africa back in 1991 and 1992 was over winter. December and January. So we're in January. There was a period called Hamatan where the winds from the Sahara Desert are blowing so strong they actually get a cloudy day, a sand mist in the skies over West Africa. Are we in that same time period there, Hamatan? Again, pronounce that for me.
Hammer time.
That's where he got it from. I never knew that until right now. So essentially, we're joined by Art Mobley, who is a founding member of the National Association from Black Journalists. Also, our guest in from Chicago, a Palestinian activist, Abdul Rahman El Gole, and also Dr. Viper White, who is the author of what, Dr. White? You want to mention that book for us?
Yes, Blacklisted, The Price for Speaking Truth.
See, that goes along with what we're talking about here. If you blacklisted by the Western establishment, you're on the right train. And that's what we're going to talk to you guys here in the listening audience today about what is the right train. If your activism is not organized front against your enemy, he will allow you to prosper. He will put you all over social media, all over CNN, MSNBC. He'll scale you across all different types of podcasts, and just let you beat your chest because he knows that you only want a little piece of his pie and a section of his pecking order that he controls. So literally, you're controlled opposition. That's all you are. That's all you can aspire to, is to be controlled opposition. On the revolutionary front, we seek to set up the end to Western domination, the end to white world power, the end to the very construct that has brought, at least over the last 500 years, the entire world to their knees. So today we're going to be discussing elements of what the establishment really fears. And we chose a topic today that we know that will give you clues to dive deeper in the listening audience, to come up with information that you can organize along your fronts, along and your foundations, so that you can participate in the liberation struggle. Because you rising into your consciousness is not good enough. Consciousness devoid of organization and activism, empty. You conscious, you're just sitting around, talking to people and carrying on conversations like you're real heavy. That's not going to get it done. The enemy fears activity. So I just want to kind of set the table, and then we're going to dive into this. And the table will be set. What does America and the West fears as we march toward our ultimate liberation? We know by the moves that they make, not only America, but its proxies, and we can understand from there what they really fear. here's the historical, at least in recent history, the historical backdrop to this. We saw coming out of the 1945 Fifth Pan African Congress that was organized by Padmore as well as Du Bois, W.D. Du Bois, that there was a concentration on overthrowing the European colonialism, which was organized in the late 19th century. 1884, the European nations all gathered in Berlin and they carved up the world for themselves. They took the resources from the world, from everywhere, Africa and Asia, and of course, down in the Caribbean and South America. In addition to that, we have to understand that they were coming off of 310 years, over 3 centuries of free labor that stole human beings from Africa as free labor, brought them to South America, Central America, the Caribbean, and to North America in order to produce goods so that they can send back to Europe. So that was the triangle. It's not a transatlantic triangle. It is a European triangle because they were the only ones that benefited in this capitalist structure. So as we saw colonialism come to an end because of the framework that was set up to attack it at the Fifth Pan-African Congress in 1945, by 1960, 2/3 of Africa were, in that one particular year, represented their independence, and it was called the Year of Africa. But prior to that, in 1955, the former colonial subjects organized in Bandung in Indonesia. That was the Bandung Conference, and it was an Afro-Asian alliance. And we're talking about a Pan-African, Pan-Arab alliance today. That's the only threat to the West that would bring down their existence and put the final nail in their coffin. Out of the Bandung Conference in Indonesia, we also saw in 1961 the organization of the non-aligned movement, where over 121 countries came together to organize again against the West. Tito in India, and Nkrumah in Ghana, Gamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt, Sukarno, of course, in Indonesia, in order to organize this massive front. What we saw after this is what we're going to talk about today. The threat of, and this will be post John F. Kennedy, if I can excuse the assassination by the CIA in 1961 of Patrice Lumumba. This was a carryover from the Eisenhower administration. Now, Kennedy himself was skeptical of Israel. Go back and read his 1939 letters to his father, Joseph Kennedy, whom was ambassador from the United States, who kind of oversaw the situation in England. And these letters were very critical of the Zionists, really critical. So when Kennedy takes office in January 1961, he's very skeptical about Israel. Post Kennedy's assassination is when we see the shift that we're going to talk about here today. This is the real threat to the United States and the West. The United States could not stomach independent Palestine sitting in the middle of the Middle East, along with Africa coming into their burgeoning independence. So they blocked that, and they empowered Israel as their attack dog. This is the first time that we see America really focusing on Israel as a proxy, not in 1948. That's a British thing, primarily. But it happens in the mid to late 1960s. So you can point to how they were armed to the teeth in that 67 war. They also used Israel to attack the frontline states in Africa, Tanzania, Angola, Mozambique, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. These were apartheid states. It was Israel that was used by the United States as a proxy to arm apartheid South Africa with nuclear weapons. Swallow that. So they talk about democracy at home, but they sure don't talk about it abroad. lastly, before I turn this over to the panel, this is the specific reason that the United States uses Israel as the proxy because of their interests of the capitalist class. Not so much that we see, and we see a lot of talk about Israeli lobbies inside the United States, APEC. Yeah, but it was really a broader issue here around the capitalist class. So I'll turn this over first to Art Mobley to kind of dive in and piggyback off of some points that I made as the fire starter for today's discussion.
Well, you certainly have thrown a Molotov cocktail my way, brother. But we'll start the fire with that, no problem. Good morning to all the other panelists and everybody listening around the world. We certainly here on the Muslim Street want to bring you as much of a contextualized conversation as we possibly can. And this has definitely got a lot of texture in it. So, one of the things that we haven't broached and you might have skipped over was the Suez Canal and what it represents to the movement of oil around the world. And it, even back then, back in 61 and before, was really about the movement of oil. And it has not ceased to be the main factor behind what is going on. So I think your points were well made, well established. And this is a conversation that we have to start having. We have to start having this in every sector. And it needs to be broadened significantly. It's not anything that should be viewed as being negative. The Zionist movement is definitely revealed itself as being a major threat, if not the most threatening thing to the international community and society. And that's by their own design. That's what they do. So it has to be addressed. It has to be challenged. It has to be dealt with. And it will be dealt with collectively as people crystallize and focus on what that actually means. Their objectives are to control. They want to control the world. If anybody ever thought about one world government, that should be a synonymous meme or an idea that should pop into your frame of reference. Zionism is about creating this one world government. It's not anything else that's been postured or configured. It's really that simple. And it has been since the Kennedy assassination and days just before that. I mean, when you think about there's a perception that what people most fear to talk about is usually an indicator of what controls you as a culture, as a world, as an international community. If you're afraid to speak about anything, usually that thing is what controls you. So we have to really set aside our fears and move forward to address, organize, and address this demon, this monster that's out there that is attempting to usurp everybody else's authority and make sure that we all don't enjoy Sundays. I like Sunday. I want to keep enjoying Sundays. I don't want a nuclear holocaust and a configuration and war and things that would stop us from enjoying life. We got kids, we got grandchildren. We all want to see them grow and produce a world that they can live in and they can project ahead. That's what self-determination is all about. That's what real liberation is all about. To be able to say to your grandkids, you're going to have this and this and this to work with, and this is what I would like for you to do. We have to be able to keep those concepts flowing. We have to keep that as being something real and tangible to us. So I'll
Okay.
allow you to introduce some more of our family here.
Right. Yeah.
And,
So, yeah.
share.
On that note, you mentioned art. This thing about self-determination. This is a question for Abdul Rahman, a Palestinian activist fighting for the liberation of his people. We have the Black liberation struggle. We have his history, the two angles and roads that it went down. Um, I, I often see Abdul Rahman, and I want you to address this straight ahead. I often see others talk about what's good for the Palestinian people. Oh, they need a two-state solution. Maybe the Palestinians, if you give them agency over their own self-determination, will say, "Now we need a one-state solution, and we need those after you end the occupation to go back to Brooklyn, go back to Poland, go back to the Ukraine, go back to Russia, and go back wherever you came from because you wasn't from here, right?" So I really want to give you agency, Abdul Rahman, the only Palestinian on this platform, to talk about exactly what do the Palestinians want ultimately vis-a-vis a one-state solution or two-state solution. Go ahead.
Well, to be honest with you, Palestinians are split into two camps on that issue. The reality is the two-state solution is pretty much gone because they have never given us a clear-cut idea of what that state would look like. And with the settler movement that's been happening the last 20 years, when after there was a lot of peace talks and all these things about a two-state solution, the other side has gone on and obliterated that idea by expanding the settlements and taking more and more of what that Palestinian state would look like. So it's been swinging more within the Palestinian population that a one-state solution is more of a reality because we don't see the other side as abandoning the settlements. You know, there was a time, there was talk of them giving up settlements to make a deal. That has gone out the window, at least in reality. I mean, they talk it, but you know, and most of what they say is lies anyway. One thing that is very, very important to our people and always gets put on the back burner or not included in discussions of any deals for a Palestinian state, and has been really one of maybe the biggest point that's been blocking any sense of having a deal or acceptance of a deal is the right of return. You know, you spoke about sending these people back to Brooklyn and Poland. It's more important that we have the right to go back to our homes, you know, to our villages, to our towns. And there, right now, it seems like that's always being taken off the table. So I think the right of return for Palestinians to go back to Palestine, if there's going to be a Palestine state, is probably the number one issue.
Yeah, great points. And thank you very much for establishing that perspective. Dr. White, Donald Trump, on the behest of Benjamin Netanyahu, is about to go into Iran. Donald Trump, on the behest of Marco Rubio, went into Venezuela, left him in charge, talking about going into Cuba, which is Marco Rubio's former homeland. He came out of the aristocratic class that Castro kicked out because they were usurping the people. Marco Rubio wants not only a destabilized Middle East, deeper destabilized Middle East, but he on behalf of Israel, but he also wants to totally restructure and recolonize for the United States, Central and South America.
I agree with you. I want to go back to the original statement you said earlier during the opening. about Israel being a proxy state. I would change that. The United States is now the proxy state because our foreign policy in reference to South America, Central America, Asia, and Africa, and the Gulf states are dictated by the will, by the aspirations, by the directives of the Zionist Israeli state. We saw their activities in Argentina. We saw their activities in their hands in Colombia. We see their activities in hands in Venezuela, as well as in Somalia, Somaliland, and so forth. So there's a change in this. Now the question is what do the United States want, and what does the Israeli government want? Yes, they want control, but the issue now is what they are afraid of, and what they're afraid of is what I will call an economic military alliance, not just with what I call the Arab states. I would call the Gulf states, because you have to include Iran there, which is a Persian community. And also you have to include India as well, and Pakistan and so forth within this mix. So therefore it is a Gulf or a larger regional alliance with the African states. All right. That's very important to look at because, of course, there's been some differences, even though we have had connections of unity and discussion with such people as President Nasser of Egypt years ago, Chairman Arafat, President Gaddafi, Kwame Nkrumah, and so on. Now, when I say they are afraid of a military economic alliance, this is the issue what they're afraid of. One, the economics. Well, the Gulf states have the oil. The African states, they have just about everything else, from cobalt, diamonds, platinum, manganese, bauxite, uranium, name it, they have it. All right, so we talk about raw minerals there that the United States need to, and Israel want their hand on, and we cannot exclude the EU. Now, what about the military alliance? Normally, when we talk about a military alliance, we talk about just soldiers and armies getting together. I take it a step farther. African states now beginning to realize the only way that they can protect themselves from the United States and the European Union and Israel is to have nuclear deterrence. That's on the table now, especially what we have seen with Venezuela. And if we see an alliance now with the Gulf states, with the African states, working together to develop nuclear deterrence to the United States, it brings forth a new scene and a new world. Without that, all what we're talking about, unity and alliance, is all cultural. And it really means nothing. And it means that our countries, the Gulf states and the African states, as well as the Caribbean, will always be on the verge of encroachment by the imperialists. And that's something that I think that's where the conversation needs to begin.
Yeah. And we see and have been identified Mossad operatives inside these big quote unquote protests that are going on in Iran. The West sponsors the same playbook when they want to go in and overthrow government. First, they create these protests. Second, they try to demonize the leaders, make them public enemy number one, if not, in some cases, countries. Then they go in and overthrow the leader and try to make themselves as the heroes. Right now, Mossad has been identified as the ones who are leading protests inside of Shia Iran. Right now, this is quite interesting. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on Iran and it's about to erupt?
Yes, yesterday, Netanyahu and President Trump, a day or two ago, met together. All right, they had a conversation via the telephone, and Netanyahu has urged President Trump to attack Iran, and that's coming out real soon. And Iran is on record saying that, listen, if you talk about it and you're going to do it, it's not going to be like last time. Last time, American military targets was basically off the table. They shot them, but they shot them deliberately to miss. This time is on the table. We will not only attack American military installations, but any American ally, and we will hit Israel hard.
Yeah.
So Trump can really think about this, because if this occurs, it's gonna lose. He's gonna lose.
Yeah. So I want Abdurrahman to talk about the Sunni Shia issue in the Middle East as it relates to the liberation of Palestine. And what I mean by that, Abdurrahman, is that we see Hezbollah, Shia, Houthis, Shia, Iran, Shia, coming to the aid of the Palestinian. While the Palestinians are Sunni, but we see they're surrounded by Sunni governments that sided with the status quo. Saudi Arabia, the Emiratis, the Qatarians, given airspace last time that the United States, Israel went into Iran a few months ago. Talk a little bit about this so that the audience can understand the playbook.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that, like you said, the neighboring Sunni states are not supportive and are under the influence of the West, and the main support has been through the Shia states. So it's a paradox, because there's the big religious movements are try to put fuel on the fire of differences between the two groups, Sunni and Shia. But for us, we say, well, that's fine, but they're supporting us. You guys are talking it, but these are people who are actually doing actions of support. So we as Palestinians usually don't fall into that Sunni Shia divide that, which I believe is like coming from the West. They try to divide us,
Sure.
But in reality, we're taught, that, we shouldn't put arms against our own people and our own Muslims. So I think this is a wedge that is being brought in from the West between the Sunni and Shia. But like I said in the beginning, it's a shame that there is not more Sunni states that have supported Palestine.
Yeah. The good point.
Let me get it in here, right here, real quick.
Okay.
What is taking place in reference to the Sunni issues is what the United States and the Western world has done to what I call Black Christianity. And that's what they have done is that they created an element of passivity. That is that to be a good Christian, you have to be passive, and you have to align with the state and just work within that. Now, all right, listen, and I wrote about this over 20 years ago. They have done the same with Sunni Islam. That is to be passive, be non-political, all right, and get rid of any concept of self-determinism. So therefore, if you have a Shiite or a doctrine, a liberation within the Islamic fold, you're looked upon as being an enemy of the state, i.e., an enemy of Western thought. It's no accident that throughout the United States, the first thing that comes out of imams' mouths is that Islam is the religion of peace. We know it is, but they create this dynamic constantly so that if someone comes along and says, listen, you have to be a little bit more aggressive politically and materially for your own state, you're looked upon as being an enemy. You're looked upon as being a radical. You're looked upon as being a militant. Thus, you're not needed within the society. You should be ostracized. And that's the same thing they've done to Black Christianity.
Yeah, I think
Well,
there's some parallels there. I give a 1.5 hour lecture of a deeper layer, a historical layer to why we see Sunnis acquiesce with the West and why we see Shia have the politics of liberation against the West. There's a historical layer to that, and I like to have that discussion with you, Dr. White, and maybe we can do a show on that. And that's definitely what you pointed out is an overlayer, but there's some nuance to it. I interrupted Abdurrahman.
I want to follow up on something Dr. White said, which is important, that they are teaching that in the Sunni, but the one movement in the Sunni Muslim Arab world was the Muslim Brotherhood, and they made them out to be the big boogeyman, where it's people are even scared to say the word Muslim Brotherhood, but in reality, those were the only ones who in the Sunni world were supportive of Palestine and liberation, and they've almost eliminated that.
Yes.
Yeah, we saw that latest round during the Obama administration and the overthrow of Dr. Morsi in the supporting of the opposition forces in Egypt, which eventually led to his overthrow and incarceration and then death. So, Art Mobley, what do you say?
Well, I say it all gets back to what we were speaking of earlier. Divide and conquer is the most potent tool to control the rest of the population that you're targeting. So this is just standard stuff, whether it's in the U.S. or it's in Europe or it's in Palestine or it's in Africa. The goal is to divide and conquer. And what we overlook a lot of times on the side of those forces fighting for liberation is the opportunity to look at what your resources are at your own disposal. There are tremendous populations that support what we have going on. There's some real bad noise in the background.
Yes, crackling coming from somewhere. I've been addressing that with our producer in the background, Lance. Can you address that? What is crackling?
It's somebody's internet connection or wire. Something one of us has that's creating that background crackling.
And if we find out which one of y'all doing this, who's the CIA agent here? Okay.
I'm looking to see if it's me.
Whoever's crackling, we know who you are.
Ain't a bowl of cereal sitting there.
Yeah.
Oh, it disappeared. No, but
I think it was vibrant. It's gone now. He came off.
One of the things we overlook even with Iran. Iran has a tremendously large Jewish population, in Iran, and I don't know if that network is one that is anti Persia or anti Iran. I doubt it. I from what I've seen, they live in congeniality and harmony with the people there in Iran. Palestine, when it was formed into this shared state, was certainly populated with a strong Jewish population. I think it was about 20,000, 30,000 Jewish people who were in Palestine in '48 when that state was formed. Everybody else became, just imports and immigrants, from other areas of the world, and has swollen now to something like 8 million people, and which is overwhelming, certainly for the state that is there. Egypt and the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm glad you mentioned the Muslim Brotherhood, because it was really devastating what happened when Sisi came to power. The president of Egypt came out of the military, but he came in on the backs of almost a massacre of the Muslim Brotherhood. So putting these things in contextual appearance and statement, I think is important. You know, we need to keep reminding people of this history and what's happened, but at the same time, we have to look towards the future and understand that we are the vanguard for moving this alliance between Muslims and Africans, Muslims and the rest of the world, moving it forward and doing so under a banner of peace and brotherhood and good things to come. So we want positive things to happen, but we have to have the ability to organize. We have to stay focused on organizing, and I think that that's the direction that we're moving in throughout Africa, throughout the Western world, among those people who are part of the global South, and of course those Muslim countries, those Islamic countries that have always been the vanguard of peace and the proper prosperity ideals that I think the world should adopt. But we can't get lost in the mire. We can't let these people divide and conquer us to a point where they have absolute control of the narrative. This is a narrative that is imperative that we take back. One last thing I will say about Iran. I understand that the internet is completely down there, and there's a blackout. They are not allowing information in and information out, and that's so that people who are hostile towards Iran, especially with all of the discussion and the talk about imminent attack to Iran, that those forces can't communicate effectively because they have to communicate with people on the ground. So I'm not mad at them for having that connection lost or that shut down. I think we have to wait and see. Each nation has a right, population has a right to administer what happens in that population on their own and in their own processes. So I'm hopeful that we can get beyond it. I don't believe that the U.S. would dare attack Iran, but you know, there's always the conjecture that is going to surround this kind of a situation. So,
I do believe that they will attack, Arthur. In reference to this, is that we know that the protests that's in Tehran, as well as in other parts of the country, is being dictated, paid for by the American government. This morning on all the Sunday talk shows, you had Iranian Americans speaking about, well, this is a good thing. They're holding up the flag of the Shah when he is in government, and so and Trump has stated that, well, if more people get killed, he's going to go and he's going to utilize that as an excuse.
But
all right. So they will go in. We saw this. We saw this in the Arab Spring. We saw this in Libya. That's where they go.
This is a narrative controlling propaganda. This is the divide and conquer that they do. They attempt to saturate the media with these kinds of perceptions. So it's not coming from the Iranian people. It's not coming from people in other parts of the world who are diametrically opposed to an attack on Iran. And I'm telling you, there will not be an attack on Iran. They will not attack Iran. They wouldn't dare attack Iran because Iran is a consolidated state that has a significant history, particularly with the U.S., going back to the crisis that they had during the Carter administration, when the embassies were taken control of, and they had to eliminate the Shah and bring back civility through the Ayatollah Khomeini into Iran. And that was something that cannot be undone. They know they can't undo that, but they will certainly bluster and continue to drive this false narrative that they're on the verge of attacking.
Yeah,
Remember, I stated that Israel is the one who's driving this.
Yeah.
All right. And let me finish. And then along with this is that you have no one in Congress and the Senate that has seriously pushed back against the Trump administration. By their silence and their weakness, they have signed off on it. The UN has not done anything about it. The AU and all the other international organizations seem to be paralyzed. So therefore, when you have a leader of a country that is drunk with this type of power, and he is given these statements of what he is going to do, unless there's someone else out there that say, listen, if you move in, we're going to give you a bloody nose. The only group that can possibly do this is the Chinese and the Russians, who have now sent warships to the Gulf, all right, to look at these things. But if that doesn't work, there's nothing that is going to stop the Trump and the Marco Rubio regime from doing this. All right. All the talking in the world and all the concepts in the world of unity and Pan-Africanism and Arab nationalism is not going to stop them. They're going to have to be stopped by the threat.
That's why it hasn't happened. It has
stopped. It hasn't stopped them.
Well, again, like I'm saying, the Iranian country and what they were able to do to basically the Zionist state and to Israel proper. It's a very small area. I mean, Israel is about the size of New Jersey, and Iran is spread out 100 times that size over a larger area. And the U.S. can act as though they are going to go in. They can make these noises, and they don't need China. They don't need Russia. Iran in and of itself is a deterrent, and no one is going to attack Iran. They're not going to attack Iran.
You forgot one thing, Arthur, and that is Israel is the 8th largest nuclear state in the world. They have 8, the number 8, and they will use it. The Zionists will use it.
It doesn't matter. It's fear-mongering for us to spread that notion when it's not a valid notion. Israel is the size of New Jersey and can be wiped out very quickly just by Iran in a conventional war. So you can talk about Israel is not going to get the authorization.
You think the United States is going to stand aside and let Israel be destroyed? No way.
Absolutely. They almost did a couple of months ago when bombs were raining down on Israel.
And when they had about 3 or 4 more days left of ammunition, what did the United States do? The United States gave them more weaponry when they was running out.
Well, they can give them conventional weapons. Again, you're talking a conventional versus more potent weapons. Yeah. But the hypersonic missiles that Iran unleashed on Israel nearly devastated and crippled Israel. I mean, they even hit.
And they almost assassinated Benjamin Netanyahu.
They hit Netanyahu.
They missed his bedroom. So one of the things that Abdul Rahman, that Dr. White mentioned was the morning news cycle, the morning news shows that go on in the United States on Sunday. And this whole ram up to attacking Iran. And then he mentioned these Iranian Uncle Toms who they have no problem finding, okay? Just like you find black Uncle Toms on every corner to come out against black people. You find these people to come out against Iran. They had them when they went to war with Iraq. They found those people too. So anyway, We have to
Be
caution.
careful, Malik. They're not Iranians. They're Persians.
Exactly. Persians by ethnicity, and a lot of people think they're Arabs, and they're not.
No, that's what the word they use.
Yeah,
those folks out in California.
Exactly. So I want you to jump in on this point. Dr. White had mentioned, all the noise is coming out of these expats from Iran. We want the Shaw back stuff, garbage. We see the same playbook all the time. We saw it with the run up to the assassination and the overthrow of the El Jamahiriya in Libya and the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi. Susan Rice, who was the UN ambassador to the UN at the time in 2011. She went before the UN and uttered these words out of her mouth, and I never forget it. Okay, she said, and this will be your morning talk show cycle, Dr. White. That would be its equivalent. She said that Muammar Gaddafi doesn't like Black Americans. And I was like, what? He just offered us $1 billion that they wouldn't let in here. He gave Minister Louis Farrakhan $5 million in 1984, and he built a mosque in Chicago, at least loaned the money in 1972, and it's the largest mosque in Chicago today, at least in the Chicago proper. So and we knew this was BS, right? Mm-hmm. This is the kind of stuff that they will find and they would throw out Abdul Rahman in order to convince people that this is bad. The Iranians want their country back. They don't like wearing all these scarves over their head. Go in there and kill them. Go ahead.
Yeah, the PR movement has started. I mean, you've been seeing it, right? That they're oppressing the people. So what they want to do is right now they want to set up where the public accepts striking Iran or having a military conflict with Iran. They're trying to set that up to be accepted because right now there's a lot of people, even on the right, saying, "Why are we doing?" Tucker Carlson's are framing it as, "We're going to strike Iran for Israel. Israel is dictating what America is doing, so it's Israel first, not America first." So what they're trying to counter that is by saying, well, they're oppressing the people. Look, there's millions are protesting. Of course, it's not millions. Millions are protesting the government in Iran. It's oppressive government. We're out there. We're going to save those people. Yeah, it's just a PR campaign to set this up. And, it's hand in hand, U.S. and Israeli PR campaign to get it accepted because they don't want to start something and have it blow up in their face with multiple protests, both from the left and the right, against this. So they're feeling. I feel like they're feeling their way through this, seeing what they can get away with, what they can get away with. It's not going to be good. Like Brother Mobley said, Iran is not Venezuela or even Libya. They got some strong military power, but yeah, they're trying to set this up. You could tell with what they're doing with the people you said they're bringing out on these talk shows. They're trying to frame a picture where the American public's going to be okay with doing this.
There's a method to their madness.
And Art, I'd like you to jump in on this. In 2005, 2006, there was a protracted policy that came out of the Clinton, that was born in the Clinton administration, that they wanted the Sudan to split into two. That was realized in 2011, 2012, oversaw by Barack Obama. Now, listen. And it crossed over the Bush administration. Just to let you know, they're all
doing it Somalia.
People. They're all on the same people. They're all on the same team. Now, Art, my question is, as we look at what Abdul Rahman said about this playbook, Dr. White had mentioned, these Iranian Uncle Toms that are all on TV and stuff. They're all on the internet. We've seen them. I mean, it's sickening. So I talked about what Susan Rice, the lies that came out of her mouth. All right. Susan Rice is always been a traitor to our people. Anyway, 2005, 2006, because they wanted Sudan split in half, right? They said that Arabs were killing Black Africans in Darfur. They literally went on all of the airwaves and started telling these lies. We took a fact-finding mission over there, out of which the Darfur 23 were born. We came back and said, BS, that's garbage. And the pushback that I personally got and the Darfur 23 got from both sides of the Black movement, one, the revolutionary side of the Black movement, and the other side, they were gone in the first place. But what was interesting, though, as that set up, the pushback from the revolutionary element of the Black movement on the Sudan thing, right? They bought the propaganda, and they were literally being financed and funded by the state, the West, in order to push that propaganda. I saw with my eyes. One day I'll start mentioning names because there were some debates that went on behind closed doors. Second thing was, and I want you to jump in on this, is that the for some reason, Operation Push gave us a platform, and I gave a 2-hour lecture there in front of a crowded audience. One of my professors, Dr. Anderson Thompson, rest in peace, was sitting in the audience. And he is one of the foremost revolutionary thinkers that we had of the past century, right? And afterwards, he said, huh, you were right on top of it. So that let us know, all right, that the information that we were pushing forth has to be from independent sources, right? These Uncle Toms, they will find them everywhere. They're not hard to find, right?
Well, we warned the people of Sudan back then at that time, if you allow this split to happen, you won't see an end of it. And now we're looking back in retrospect, and our worst fears came to reality because we knew what the strategy was back then. We projected that, just as we're projecting right now what's going to happen in places like Iran and Palestine certainly could have been forecast, and what's happened in Egypt and what we're forecasting that will happen in West Africa, unless there are not real efforts to organize under the banner that we started this program with. We need to unite Africans. We need to unite Muslims. We need to find our best alliances so that we unify. And when I say unify, I'm talking about unification in Africa of land, territory, government institutions, militaries, monetary systems. We need to be serious about this because this opposition is going to be very overwhelming if we allow them to continue to fractionalize us the way they're doing. So I'm not for engaging in any kind of split talk and any kind of talk about dividing one group over here and African Americans against foundational Black whoever over here and Native people. We need to organize based on the ideas of who is opposing us. Where are the forces that are coming against, where the forces of exploitation are coming from, and how those things are affecting all of us. So if we do that, I think we'll be able to safely move forward to make some real on the ground.
Before I let Dr. White jump in, 1 second, Dr. White, before I let you jump in, Abdul Rahman, for the sake of the listening audience, can you paint a picture in their minds of the Palestinian diaspora? I think he's on mute. You're on mute, Abdul Rahman.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yes.
Yeah, the diaspora is all over the world. I mean, in Arab countries, in Europe, in America, in South America, in Chile, in Brazil, some of the largest Palestinian populations there are. Palestinians, even in Central America and South America, are part of the governments. some in a good way, some in a not so good way. So yeah.
The reason I brought that up because I think the clarity of the Palestinian people who sit at the center of this genocide needs to be explained of who's who. Because I'll be honest with you, if you talk to most people, even the ones who are conscious and involved in the movement in this country, from a Black perspective, they think all the Palestinians are just here, or if they're not here, they're in Gaza, or they're on the West Bank. So I'm glad that you addressed that, or they think they're here and just support Bernie Sanders and his bullshit politics. Okay, so I just had to say that. But Dr. White, we got a few minutes left. I'd like for you to chime in.
I agree with the brothers. One of the things that we have to have more Palestinians to speak out, ones that are prominent. For example, you have one of the most famous rappers is DJ Khaled. And I mean, he has audiences, but he has not said a mumbling word about the Palestinian cause. He has followers. He has completely sucked out, and he could galvanize more support and more voice and more support and create more of an influence than all of us combined. So we need those types of people who can speak out in reference. They have an audience and they can sing. He raps with the African Americans. He raps with the Latinos, but he says nothing. But along with this, one of the things that we have to do if we're going to create a unification is that we have to begin to stop believing the lies of the West. I mean, in every negotiation, in reference to going back to Libya, when Gaddafi was in power, and the United States said, "Hey, listen, if you get rid of your nuclears, we will, and your development of nuclears, we will take you off the terrorist watch list." That happened. What happens? Libya is gone. Gaddafi is killed, sodomized. All right. Same thing with Iran when they were negotiating about again nuclear deterrence and so forth. In the middle of the negotiation, Israel and the United States hit them. Then the same thing with Venezuela. All right. While they're working and negotiating, in the middle of their negotiation, they go in and kidnap the president. So the point is, what we have learned from this is that we have to stop believing in the lies, and we have to completely develop an armed resistance. And that's one of the things that the Korean president said this morning. All right, that we will have an armed resistance. In fact, he went off and tested some more nuclear sites, saying that we're not Venezuela. If you come to us, there's going to be a response. And the Arab and the African states have not learned this as of yet. We're still in this mindset of this cultural unity as opposed to a military and economic military.
Well, I got a hypothetical just to ask the entire panel. I mean, we border on this discussion about nuclear, and Iran has to develop and cycle so many nuclear plants to come up with the centrifuges so that they can develop enough plutonium to set aside to put into a bomb. How come they can't just buy a bomb from China? How come they can't buy a bomb from North Korea or Russia? The only reason they can't is because there are standards, there are policies, there are agreements internationally. So there's still some international structure out there that everybody wants to follow. But if it weren't for those structures, Iran would have everybody would have a nuclear weapon in that sense. And for all intents and purposes, everyone should have the kinds of weapons that they feel that are associated with the protection of their particular population. But that being said, I wanted to just get that in there. But we were talking about Palestine, and just real quickly, Palestine in 1948 was the most advanced state of any in the British Empire. They controlled as a colony Palestine, but they invested very heavily. They had universities, hospitals, institutions there that people were taking advantage of. And there was an amazing amount of brain trust that was developed among the Palestinian population. And when they decided to break up Palestine and allow for this invasion in 48, and the bulldozers came in and they started the Nakba, and they tried to remove people, that intelligentsia of the Palestinian state was coveted and desired by all of the other Muslim states, all of the other Arab states, and a lot of them had to flee because they were under the threat of assassination and annihilation. And so that population became the people who were the executors of every Arab country. And as Rahman mentioned, even as far away as South America, you have people from that same movement and that same development.
Okay, absolutely. Good point. All right, we're coming up against the clock. I want to thank everybody for joining us here on the Muslim Street. Hopefully, we're able to begin. Just want to say to the audience, we just like jibber jab and talk back and forth for podcast purposes. This is a movement. This is an organized front against white power, an organized front against worldwide white domination. We're tired of it. We're not having it anymore. So when you hear ideas and organizational strategies that we come up with here, these are things that I put in play. Again, just want to say to Abdul Rahman, I want to thank you, a Palestinian brother, for joining us. And try to do something about that DJ Khaled. I tell you what, I'm going to get with Dr. White and Art, and we're going to try to do something about Floyd Mayweather, who proposed that he will give as much money to the IDF that he can as possible. LeBron James, who came out after Israel took their lickings on October the 7th and said that he supports Israel. And then, of course, I'll leave you with the Uncle Tom pro-Zionist of the year, former mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, who makes you want to throw up. And he put a yarmulke on just about 10 days ago, and he kissed that Wailing Wall. Again, we'll see you next week. For Dr. Viper Issa White, Blacklisted, go purchase it. Abdul Rahman again, Willie, thanks for joining us today. And of course, Art Mobley, Dot 423, and also founding member of the National Association of Black Journalists. Lance Gerv, thanks again, Lance, for producing this show out of Accra, Ghana. We'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Mm-hmm.